This slurry and sludge is causing cancer. It's killing animals. For this particular example, people's homes were literally washed away, and there's nothing we can do, and all because these people aren't following these regulations.
To add on to this subject, there was a school in Southwest Virginia, it was an elementary school that was affected. It was near Marion, Virginia, which is a lot like Rappahannock, small but mighty. They also won the 2A volleyball state championship like we won. And what happened was there was a coal mine outside of the school, and slurry was dumped out, and it got into the water, and it made kids sick and everything. It was just god awful. So, since strip mining is at its large, it's nearly impossible to stop it. It is best to try to make it more environmentally sustainable. This would be better than trying to stop it completely, because miners would be able to keep their jobs, which would not jeopardize families and communities.
So a few solutions. We want to contact legislation and representatives and sort of start a letter writing campaign and just raise awareness and get the word out there, because a lot of people, like I said, don't know that this is going on. I mean, 470 mountains in Virginia, that is ridiculous. And once we chop a mountain down, you can't get it back. They don't grow. So we, again, just want to raise a lot of awareness for this, and also reducing the consumption of these minerals and coal, and finding alternative sources of energy, perhaps wind turbines, since we do live in the mountains, because it's a lot better than damaging the environment, permanently damaging the environment, and also reclaiming the land that has been mined. And like I said before, there are regulations, but they're not being followed, so we do want to do more research on what those laws are, and how often they're being followed.
So to conclude everything up, although it is nearly impossible to stop strip mining, it is very possible that strip mining could perhaps be done in a more eco-friendly manner.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time, guys.
I want to thank you for coming also, and I just have one quick little question, and
Yes,
Morgan
ma'am.
has some questions, but what caused you to go that direction to look at strip mining? I mean, I know your flex is kind of open, so what did you decide? How'd you get interested in that, I guess?
Well, it was actually brought to our attention a few weeks ago, and we started doing a lot of research about it. It was really frightening. None of us knew anything about it before doing this Flex project. So once we saw how bad it was, we wanted to do more research and raise more awareness.
So your next steps, you mentioned some of your next steps, and you want to talk to your representative, talk to your state representative?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And even more than that, like, we want to raise as much awareness and just let everyone know that this is not okay.
What do you think about the flex period? Was this a good project to do? I mean, did you enjoy it?
I definitely think so.
It's definitely is a fun process.
Yeah. I mean, it's a work in progress, but
During the research,
research you've done, as you started to recruit, that's certainly something that would be a good summary, because they're bombarded with information. And so anything you can do to summarize things, and boil it down, is going to be real helpful.
Provide solutions.
And
Yes.
your perspective is not one that they might have, so it's good for you to share your perspective as well. So I encourage you to follow through on that. Well done. All right, reports from our student representative. Thanks for coming.
Don't y'all want a cupcake to go with you?
No more sugar?
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I have good things to report this month for the high school, good things from both the court and the classroom. From the court, as you all know by now, our varsity volleyball team finished up the year undefeated with a 27-0 record and won the very first ever volleyball state championship for RAP. There were a huge amount of students and parents cheering our team on in Richmond, and we were very happy to bring home a state championship. Earlier that month, senior Gavin Jenkins became the first state champion of the year, winning the boys cross-country state championship. And then later in December, last week actually, our theater squad finished up the season as state runner-up after taking a conference and regional championship. In another first ever event, some of our football players received all Rap River Conference recognition. I think it's safe to say that fall sports were very good to Rap, and the volleyball and theater students were very appreciative of the charter bus that RCSSA paid for them to take to the state events. Winter sports are starting off almost as well. Our varsity boys basketball team started the season off 2-0, and our JV boys, JV, and varsity girls, and JP and girls all have at least 2 wins at this early point in the season. Our wrestlers have competed in just 2 tournaments so far, but are already racking up a lot of wins themselves. And the Scholastic Bowl has started its season. They've had their first home event last week, and they too are bringing home the W's. And related to sports, sort of, the After Prom Committee held their East Coast Pro Wrestling fundraiser last Saturday, and everyone there really enjoyed the show. We are looking forward to seeing Mr. Tupper join the WWE, and Mr. Burley and Mr. Swindler being his manager and trainer. From the classroom, we just started our SOL testing for the fall semester, and early scores are looking very good. Mr. Nazer had 100% of his students pass the chemistry SOL, and every other teacher tested so far has reported great results. We finished most of our testing today. Mr. Tupper, Mr. Swindler, and Ms. Papa are all very excited to see how well the students did, with early results looking really good. Students are looking forward to Christmas break, but are also looking forward to the Pride Variety Show, which will happen a week from today. Ms. Pond has been running rehearsals, and once again, it looks like there will be some outstanding performances in the auditorium. And I'm not sure if this is my last meeting or not, but if it is, thank you for all of this. It was a great experience, and I've had a lot of fun. I'm gonna miss it.
You've really grown on it.
Good or bad?
It's been good having you here.
I
Hey,
still want his hair.
what's the date of the Pride
I think it's
performance?
next
Wednesday,
Wednesday.
21st.
Yeah.
21st, and it's during the school day, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, it's an early release, so,
Yep.
pretty much gets started pretty early. I can give you.
Like 9 in the morning or something?
Probably, yes.
Because that's quite a show. I
It's
mean,
gotten to be.
it's full of surprises.
A lot of talented young people.
Well, we have something for Jacob. Last year, and I guess it was June, we presented him with a certificate thinking he was leaving us. And then when we changed our time around, we brought him back through December. So we will have another student representative, and of course you're welcome to come every single time. But in here we have some goodies for you.
Well, thank you.
And there are things that we think you can use when you go off to school. And there's a few things that you could really enjoy now. I believe one is a gift card in there. And help me out, Amy. We get lots of all kinds of surprises. Oh yeah, there's a few little technology tools in So take care. All right, thank you. And you come back anytime, 'cause we enjoyed having you.
Thank you, Jake.
Oh, I know. Thank you, Jacob. Take care. Want a cupcake to go?
Anybody wants your hair? Anybody wants my hair?
Got her.
Nothing.
Do what now?
Thanks.
I'm just thankful I still have her.
All right, thanks. Let's move on. Donations, can you summarize the donations?
Sure, I have three to report. TO donated $260, and this was for student admission costs for the state semi-final game, volleyball game. Brad Barnes donated $750 for wrestling team wear. And RCSSA donated, it's a cash donation of $4,231.47. And this paid for student admissions costs, 2 conference volleyball games, student admission for 3 region games, student admission for a state semi-final game and state game, volleyball game, sorry. And also, this money was used for rooms for the state championship, for transportation, team meals.
That was a very well-attended championship game. And it was great seeing all the students there. So I'm glad we could facilitate, or glad it was facilitated. It was good to see. I don't know, how many people do you think we had there?
500.
I was gonna say
Oh,
400 or
wow.
500.
Yes.
I would say
Yes.
at least 5.
Yeah, 400 or 500 people from this county were in Richmond. Well, they were on both sides.
Exactly, it was a mighty
Both
big.
sides.
It was
and,
bigger than anybody else, I know
bigger
that.
than anybody else. Yes. All right, and we'll approve those donations on our consent agenda, and with our appreciation. Is there a motion concerning the adoption of the minutes from November 8th?
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Johnson, second from Mr. Goodman. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye? Opposed, no. So ordered. Ms. Johnson, did you have a chance to review the
Yes,
bills?
I've reviewed the bills and I have my approval. Now they're here for, your approval and payment and also the payroll.
Right. All right, thanks. Is there a motion concerning the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion from Mr. Uden, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Grove. Any discussion? The personal report will be approved as amended by the superintendent during closed session. All approving aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed no. So ordered, moving to reports to the superintendent.
I just want to mention on the attendance, we're up 8 students, so we're really happy
Yeah, I
about
saw
that.
that.
Really, really happy about that.
Good sign.
Yeah, it is.
Let's see. Okay,
Just move here.
just like they moved away, we just want to keep going. We have for you, I'm gonna ask Ms. Johnson to come to the podium. We have a comprehensive plan, and I believe at the last report, Ms. Johnson had mentioned that we were still spot checking to see if we had any typos or anything in there. So there was a few things we sent to the board in advance that we added, and we highlighted those in yellow. They're open to the public. And if you have any questions for Ms. Johnson, but we're ready to, when we get to the action items, to ask for approval of the comprehensive plan.
Right, and we'll be approving that tonight under action. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Johnson?
Questions?
Only comment that I'd
Good evening. Good evening. We're here this evening to share with you all a little more about project-based learning and performance-based assessments and the regulations from the Department of Education regarding these initiatives and how we're meeting them here at Rappahannock County Public Schools. As you may remember, in 2014, in the elementary school, there were SOLs testing that was removed from end of these courses. Third grade history, science, fifth grade writing, and sixth and seventh grade histories no longer had an SOL test at the end of those courses. They still follow the SOL curriculum, however. And what happened was the Department of Education left it up to individual school divisions to instead give a local alternative assessment in these areas. And school divisions were able to sort of have some leeway in what they chose, and most divisions went ahead and continued using multiple choice testing. At this point, however, we have some requirements from the Department of Education. In the courses where SOL tests were removed at the elementary school, the regulation is that at least one performance-based assessment be used in that subject and grade level where the test was removed. Along with that regulation is the wording that we are also to promote the use of at least one performance-based assessment basically in all other courses and every subject in the division. And the wording there is to promote that use. And so, let's talk a little bit about project-based learning and performance-based assessment. We couldn't have had a better intro tonight with our students who shared some project-based learning with you, so that was pretty exciting. The project-based learning itself, which you've heard a lot about earlier from our students, the students are learning through a process of hands-on, often focuses on a large guiding question. For example, the students you heard earlier were talking about, what is the Struckmann and what impact does it have? And they sort of followed that question and investigated and researched it. With performance-based assessment, it's usually serving as an actual summative or formative assessment. Project-based learning can also do the same thing because the teacher uses that information that the students give back, oftentimes as an assessment. Students in both of these are demonstrating understanding through real-world application of skills, and both are often assessed through the use of a rubric that the teacher uses that gives the student an idea of the criteria that they need to follow to meet the teacher's guidelines. The wonderful thing about project-based assessment and project-based learning is that it ties in beautifully with our comprehensive plan. We want our students to be not only learning content, but developing life-ready skills that they can use far beyond the walls of our schools. And so, as you heard these students, they researched, they worked in groups. I heard Grant talk about, wow, well, we really worked as a team. And those are things students are going to be doing throughout their life, and we're starting them at this young age, and they're getting these experiences far more than they were from taking a multiple choice test. So that's the great part about it. And again, both of these initiatives provide students with a lot of engagement because they are basically working in context that's meaningful to them. These students, you saw the passion. They were very into what they were doing. And it's the same way with the assessments that we're working on right now. They have a purpose for learning. At the end, they have a product or a performance they're giving, so there's a sort of an initiative or motivation to get it done. And basically, it gives them an authentic learning experience. Now, by authentic, next slide, Robin. If you look at the column inauthentic, basically it's what we used to call busy work. You're filling in the blanks, you're selecting an answer from an answer bank, you're answering questions at the end of a chapter, or the multiple choice testing. Whereas the authentic learning that's part of project-based learning and performance-based assessment, a lot of writing, a lot of research, debating, solving real-world problems that students can become passionate about and feel like they're contributing as a citizen, again, one of the 5 C's. And also, the great part of it is these students are, the Gen Y, they're full of knowledge on technology, and they're able to really incorporate that into their learning now as well. And so you can see the engagement. You heard it tonight in our students when the learning becomes more authentic for the student. I'm gonna let Ms. Ellis tell you a little bit about where we are at the elementary school with meeting the regulations.
Good evening. So our work really began at the beginning of the year during convocation. We initially brought in a consultant and a national trainer, Dr. Shannon King. She worked with us for the better part of a day, kind of just letting us, giving us some foundation about what a project-based assessment would look like and how to start the process. Then she kind of set us loose that each grade level has worked together. So it kind of depends on your grade level, but I would K2, because they teach all the content, they each chose a particular subject, and then from there they looked at their SOLs and kind of could see what meshed. And the beauty of performance-based assessment is you're assessing multiple things at one time. There could be 5 or 6 SOLs that you're assessing, and it may not even be just for math. You're going to incorporate your reading and your writing and your communication and all of that. So each grade level got to look at what they wanted to do. When you get to 3rd through 7th, where they're more content specific, some of those grade levels, we have multiple. We might have, like 7th grade has 4 different PBAs, performance-based assessments. There's one for civics, one for science, one for math, and one for reading. So each teacher kind of worked on their own, but again, they had a lot of input from each other. So they set off to work on their own. Dr. King came back, Dr. Shannon King came back in November, and from there we kind of finalized what the assessment piece looked like, what we would give the students, and then they were set to work on their rubrics. And she gave some direction on that. And now we're at the point where teachers have turned in their rubrics, and then back in January, on January 4th, she will return for half a day, where we'll kind of put everything together, make final edits to it, and then teachers are ready to give those PBAs this year. Every teacher in our building, K through 7, content area specific or grade level, they will give a PBA this year. Some will probably give more than one. Teachers have jumped on board with this. They're excited. And as you can see, when Grant and Amanda were up here, they're never going to forget that learning. And so their project-based learning, which again, like Kathy said, can be used as an assessment, those kids are going to remember that forever. Whereas when you pick choice B on a multiple choice test, you may never remember really what that was next week. So it really does have some true deeper meaning for students. And so in 7th grade, I wanted to give you a couple of examples. Like I said, every teacher has their own. Some are by grade level, some are by content. The 7th grade civics teacher, so what he's given students is they're going to act as court reporters, as a news reporter. And they're going to investigate a court case. And there's very specific things that he's looking for. Is it criminal? Is it civil? He's looking for, they use the words due process and 14th Amendment appropriately. So there's all kinds of things in the rubric that kind of is aimed to assess those SOLs, but the kids are having fun and they're engaged, they're reporters. I mean, they're going to become reporters. But then you can see where that crosses over to the writing and the editing process. In 4th grade, they're going to do one as a group. They all teach science, and they're going to put together a weather forecast. Again, looking for certain things that 4th graders need to know. You know, high pressure, low pressure, things like that. So we're very excited to see what comes of it. January 4th will be when we kind of finalize everything, and then from there, kind of depends on where teachers are in their pacing, but every student will be exposed to performance-based assessments. So we're excited.
Sure. Well, you saw basically our flex period, the subject was service learning. What can you do to provide something to the community? And obviously this awareness campaign with what you saw tonight. And I think the bottom line is what we know about project-based learning and project-based assessment incorporates reading, writing, and arithmetic, every discipline. And as you saw, they're doing research. They're involved in science, talking about slurry and sludge, water supply. And what's been fascinating for us as we talk to these kids and give them ideas to expand the research. They can go into science. They can do more research. It's just fascinating. So obviously PBA's coming our way. It will be coming our way. Actually, we're gonna do some training in January. Project-based learning now in the high school, we've asked each teacher each semester to provide a project. Eva Payne and I went to Nashville last year. At the beginning of this year, we met with every discipline, Jimmy, myself, and Eva, and we trained each of our teachers in project-based learning. And what you have to do with project-based learning, it's not just about the project, it's the process, and it's a mindset. It's not just producing a project, and I think that's where a lot of people get hung up. They think in product instead of all the little detailed work that goes into the project. And we talked tonight about the soft skills that they used to call, working together, establishing who's the leader. Rubrics design all that, so you have a rubric. Okay, what do you do when so-and-so doesn't show up? Who's in charge? Those kinds of things, and who's responsible for doing this? And so it forces leadership roles. It's very dynamic, and it's evident, and we see it in vocational education. Having been a vocational teacher myself, they've been doing it for years. They produce products, and they understand, how to put things together. So, and kids don't forget it. When they learn how to use some of the machinery in this building, they learn it, they use it, they apply it, and they never forget it. So I'm excited about it, and we still have a long ways to go, but I think the project-based assessment is the pendulum swing, and it's going to be much better way to assess students. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. And so the rest of the timeline, the regulations from the Department of Ed, as we've said this year, in areas where the SOL testing was removed, we need to implement PBAs, and all other grade levels that you've heard, as you've already heard, will also be implementing at least one this year. In the 2017-18 school year, all divisions are required to share sample project-based learning and performance-based assessments across divisions. And so the instructional leaders in Region 4 are working together on a process to be able to do that. And then in the 18-19 school year, all divisions are required to partner across divisions to score samples of performance-based assessment from other school divisions. And then by the 19-20 school year, it is expected that this will just be part of the way we do business. It'll be institutionalized, and as Mr. Tupper used the word dynamic, it will become even more innovative as we go through the process. So it's a great day to be in education. This is a great initiative for our students, and we're very excited about it, and our teachers are embracing it well.
Any questions?
I'd like that. Yeah, I think it's great too. So I'm still trying to understand. I want to make sure, and so I'm going to ask some stupid questions. So this is team-oriented work, right? How many children are on a team? Like on meteorology, fourth grade meteorology team?
It varies depending on the assessment, depending on how the teacher crafts it.
Okay.
So it can vary. It can be individual.
Can't be individual.
Some
Could
of
be
the assessments
two,
can be
could be
individual.
one, could be 10.
It
Depends
could
on
be.
the size of the project, right?
Depends
Okay,
on what
that's
they're
good.
being expected
And then,
to do.
and now because I grew up in the 60s and 70s, so how do they get graded on their contribution to the overall effort, right? Or is it not graded? See, I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to ask the question.
It's okay.
How do you?
There's
how
a
do you-
process that goes along with.
Okay.
You wanna talk about it a little bit?
The rubric piece, that's the important piece so that you can assess them. And the rubric's gonna tell you exactly what you're looking for. So for instance, in the fourth grade curriculum, the teacher's looking for some things that are very, specific to that content, weather instruments. Like I said, maybe high pressure, low pressure, I don't know fourth grade science, and then clouds are big. So the teacher, the rubric's set up so that the teachers, you're letting the students know what information you're expecting to get back or what you want to hear as far as specific SOLs. But it's up to the student on how they demonstrate and how deep they go. So the rubric, you might score, rubrics are different, but you could have a 0 to 4 scale. Where you really didn't see it all the way to,
It can be
excellent.
novice to expert.
Right, so the
There's some
rubric
layers
kind
to
of
each
helps
one.
that piece of it, and without the rubric, you really couldn't.
And the
So-
rubric is often, it's shared with students as you're starting the process, so they know what the expectations are.
And the
then it leaves
parents
it open.
understand it too. So if I'm a parent and I get a report card in meteorology that says project-based learning meteorology for my fourth grade student. It's gonna say 3 out of 4. I don't know. What's it gonna tell me? I don't know.
I think that piece is probably gonna come
How
as
do
we
we
kind
do
of,
that?
as we get more, guidelines too. I think that will be a topic of conversation, what does the report card look like? Our traditional report card, once we get into this and we're in year 2019, we may find that that doesn't really serve us well anymore.
Some of the, I will tell you this from a PBL perspective, the project they're working on are working on objectives that they all need to know. And if they do the project right, they learn those objectives. You still can assess with the more traditional assessment.
There's a place for that.
I give, you know, so I wanna be sure that all of those kids know, so I give the more traditional formative or summative assessment, then I know. So it's gonna be,
It's
you know,
not a complete
it's
step
not- it's
away
not- it's
from-
not, that's not gonna be, you're gonna still have quizzes and what we grew up with.
To a
This is
lesser
just
extent.
another way to get it in there, so they'll remember it for a longer period of time. And so they'll show if they learn it in the project, they're gonna show it on that traditional test. But you can give that same test 2 years, because they learned it so well in the project, they're gonna be able to ace that test again.
Right.
You're assuming.
You assume, but that's, I mean,
I
that's.
guess I'm just curious
Sure.
how it's managed, because as a parent, I would be wondering, is my student succeeding in project-based learning? And how am I gauging, whether there's a issue or not? I don't, I guess we're gonna learn as we go.
Right now, it's not in any of the SOLs.
It is the SOL.
High school's still in the
Test.
course, but their SOLs have been.
Anything
In
that got
some
removed,
courses.
got
some
replaced
courses.
with.
So you're doing the project-based learning basically in the courses that you no longer have to take now.
That's where it's
Yes.
required.
That's what
Yes.
it is.
Go back to Chairman's question.
There'll be another ballgame in there.
It seems to me that it would make sense to, as you develop this and make it viable and workable and kind of everyday kind of learning, which I hope that's what happens, is that we will have a dialogue with parents. And parents will have an understanding of what their kids are doing, either through conferences or PTA or, meetings specifically for, project learning. I think would help parents understand when my kid comes home with a thermometer and says, I need to put this in the freezer. I mean, those are the kind of things, I think we need to do.
I guess educating the parents is gonna be part of the whole process.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
that's-
And our teachers are piloting this process this
Yeah,
year.
project-based learning is, the presentation is the big part of it. And parents will be invited to attend those presentations. That's gonna be the hard part, is when do you do that? You can't do it during the school day, so there's gonna have, but those are things, you know, obviously it's like tonight, you know, the parents showed up to see what, and one parent said, I don't even know what they were working on, so she got to see tonight all of what they've done. It's pretty impressive stuff.
I think some of the ones that I'm aware of, they'll have all-day Saturday. And they'll have kids scheduled in 8 different rooms, and they'll have parents coming all day Saturday, and parents can come and watch his kid, her kid, and then go watch other kids, do their projects. And that might be, or you take a school day, and you just say the school day, we're gonna do it all day long.
Or you YouTube it.
That's right.
Let the kids YouTube it, and the parents can, here's the link, Mom, check me out, right?
Well, I'd rather
Because,
have a parent
getting
there.
everybody on, yeah, but, I mean, it's not the world we live in.
I think
We
one of
got
the
one on YouTube tonight.
interesting things is when Kathy gave the timeline, because, I mean, the state jumped on this right away, but we were supposed to be in year 2 of getting this stuff ready, and they hadn't given it to anybody out in the schools yet, so we started out already, so they're letting us play with it at all the divisions right now. You remember the old VGLAs where you put together a portfolio of what's going on? It kind of has that take to it, because you've got to put something together, but then the grading of this stuff to replace the scoring of an SOL is going to be a real bear.
Well, I think that's where the cooperation
The
between
Region 4,
districts.
exactly,
Between
is gonna
districts
come.
and everybody working off of the same page, with the same
Right.
rubric and dealing with it from that perspective. Very similar to what used to be done with GT papers and GT projects, where a kid would do a project and then strangers would grade it using a ruler.
Looks to me like a lot of work. And especially when we start trading things amongst divisions and comparing notes and.
We're in a great region, I think.
We are.
To be able to dictate what our, and I think Shannon would agree, for the project-based assessments out of this region, Pearson's not gonna dictate to us what assessments we use. We're gonna be able to create the ones that we think work for our students, so I'm excited about that.
Thank you all.
Yes.
Wow.
The next one, 5.3, is the WOW event. And so Ms. Grimsley's going to give us an update on the Region 4 WOW event. We had another wonderful year. Got some nice pictures to show you.
All right, so good evening. We get to bring good news about our second annual WOW event. We are just so excited to have this event. This year it took place on October 12th and 13th. It was over the course of 2 days. We served 3,000 students across 7 school divisions. We involved 80 businesses, and there were more than 40 volunteers, not including those of us from the school divisions that were working. Now this event was organized by the Lord Fairfax Community College Career Pathways Consortium. It's a section of Region 4 Career and Tech Directors. Part of our agreement that we accept Perkins funds from the federal government is that we have to have a local connection with community college. And our task with this group is we provide scholarships, we've done a lot of work, but the big work we've done is to help integrate the academic career planning process. When the state mandated that about 5 years ago now, where you begin that process in the 6th grade, where you map out a student's career trajectory all the way through their second year of college. And the bureaucratic lawmakers and policymakers that they are were saying, well, what's the big deal? I don't know, they're 12. So our group was getting together, having some issues, trying to get that trajectory mapped out. So there's 7 school divisions, so the 7 of us, it's a very dynamic group from a lot of different backgrounds, but we were fighting that battle, but we're like, okay, how do we make careers interesting to 6th and 7th graders? Because our traditional career days and career fairs and bringing them to the college campus and talking to people just was not cutting it. We were finding that issue. So we said, they're 12, they're 13, let's make it like Disney World. Let's make it fun, let's make it gross, make them touch things, and they're going through all these exhibits and activities, and maybe that'll do it. So we found one other place in the country that does something like this in Mobile, Alabama. So we sent a couple of our people there to go investigate. And we decided to bring it to Virginia. We're the only group in Virginia that does this. So we're really excited about it. We partnered with the Barrett Machine Incorporated, Northern Shenandoah Valley, and the Frederick County Economic Development Authority to do this. With a little slim budget last year of $38,000, this year it was $43,000. A lot of money to raise. So we were able to pull it off, and part of that is because our setting, if you're going to have a Disney World size career fair, you kind of need a Disney World size arena to do this. So we settled on the Body Renew Fitness Center for the 2nd year in a row. It was a very good location for our program. We shut down this arena for 3 days. It's ours. So the day before the 2-day event, we get to go in, we set the whole thing up. We have there's a map on this PowerPoint that you might be able to see closer on your screens, but we have 8 different career worlds set up in the arena, and we take 2 huge sections. If you've ever been to that Body Renew Fitness Center, the old Sportsplex, you kind of know what I'm talking about. There's a big turf side arena, and then the court side arena, so we have it all separated and mapped out with a map, and it's quite the orchestration trying to get all these buses in and out of there and all the kids, and it's a lot of fun. 2nd year was so much easier, I'll tell you that. All right, so of course we had to make it fun with all these different career worlds. So kids were coming in and they got to draw blood from these fake arms from Valley Health Sector. They got to go see some real ag equipment from Blandy Farm and see the animals and get onto the tractors. We had military personnel and recruiters there. They got to do those, next slide, interactive activities. just all sorts of things, and the kids are just moving and engaged, and what we give them at the beginning of this trip, before they even get there, we give them a goal. So they have a passport, they have a book, they have to interact with the activity. They can't just go and collect the stamps on their passport, because they have a passport, and everywhere they visit, if they engage in the activity, they get the stamp, and then they get to win a prize if their name's called. So it's kind of a way we had that interactivity. Okay. Everything has to be hands-on. One of our criteria to be an exhibitor in our event is that you have to bring your A game, because these kids want to be engaged. So we had the here you see the fire station. They have a digital fire that you can put out with this digital hose, and it kind of simulates what that's like for the kids. They got to try on the gear. They got to go into the armored trucks. Just all sorts of fun stuff. So. Now, for the student learner, this is my absolute favorite part, because the cool part about partnering with the EDA in Frederick County is getting to use their marketing and PR department for some of this. So I wanted to share with you real quick also what we do before this. We give the teachers a teaching guide. This is one for each week. And we go through what the careers look like in each cluster. Thank you. We give an overview of the cluster. We go over the jobs that they can get, what the education is required. And if you open that up, they really just get a nice overview of all of the career clusters and how much education, what salaries they can make. It just gives a nice overview of all of these, so they can predetermine which worlds they want to concentrate on before they go in, and they're all tied to their academic and career plan. So we consider that in the conversation while they're doing their aptitude testing and their the pieces required in that planning. So now it becomes real to them, and the teachers walk them through with this book. They have dialogue conversations, there's lesson plans that go along with it, and then it's extended when they get back, and then it's also a survey too. And it all feeds into this one process. So now when the counselors are sitting down with these students who have gone through our world of work, when we're talking, well, what career pathway, what career cluster were you interested in? Oh, health science, so what part of that? And they have a picture in their mind. We had to draw that and paint that broad picture for them to even sit down and start to map this. Because we get pretty serious pretty quickly when we get to the high school level. And we don't want any of our kids to miss out some of those awesome activities that we have and all the enrichment opportunities we have. And for our second year in a row, almost 100% good to great rating on the event. And it gave them, especially did it give you ideas for what you want to do later. And that was the huge positive. This was totally out of the ballpark compared to what we were experiencing before with some of our other events. So we're very pleased. So planning has already begun for our third annual next year, mid-October. We have the arena already set for us, and we're gonna go at it again, getting the sponsors and getting our exhibitors, and people are lining up to exhibit again because they have such a good time with the kids. So. Any questions?
I know the Lions Club was proud to sponsor, be a sponsor.
We really appreciate it. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
You know, after
Yeah, we will.
Awesome. Thank you.
after being at the VSBA conference in Williamsburg, this is the kind of thing, if we're the only ones participating in this kind of thing in Virginia, and the whole idea, anyway, it's the type of thing that I would have liked to have seen when I was down there.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I went through the book and I was like, well, I guess I'll go to this one. I don't know. This is very exciting. And so the 3,000 students,
Mm-hmm.
was just 6th and 7th graders.
Just seventh graders.
Just 7th graders.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Sixth graders are looking forward to it.
Oh yeah.
From 7 districts.
7 districts. Yes.
7th graders from 7 districts.
Yep. Very fun.
Are they district?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. On that first
On
slide.
the first slide.
Clark, Frederick, Page, Rappahannock, Shenandoah, Warren, and Winchester City.
This is really nice. So every student, when they showed up, got one of these.
before they came, they got one because we asked the teachers to go through the guide with them to say what these career clusters were. I think Danny Pond actually came down and helped to facilitate that process with the kids, and the teachers did too. And now that they've had a year under their belt, the teachers did, they knew what to expect and really did a great job with this. So they knew going in where they wanted to focus a lot of their attention, because it is limited time. We have to get them through all of these arena stations in a timely manner, and each block got about 2.5 hours there. So.
And they get the backpack.
Yep, we gave them a cinch sack, and a passport to go through, and they were eligible for prizes, some pretty neat stuff.
It's a really good summary. I mean, nobody had anything like this for me. But if I go to this engineering page, I can tell the different fields, kind of starting salaries, because this is what exactly I would have done when I was seventh, eighth grade.
Right. All on your own time.
How much school have I got to take? I want to know these answers. Right?
And you know, we have a
It's
lot
all
of
right.
programs that they work with the students on this, and I'll be honest, one of the programs we have. But Shannon's right, trying to stimulate that seventh grader to be motivated. You couldn't just put him in front of a computer screen. You had to get him out there. And I gotta be honest, all of us adults, we had a lot of fun too. It really was. It's a great day to go and help out, it really is.
Thanks.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Thank you.
Wow.
And then I'm gonna ask you to stay up there, Ms. Grimsley. This is the year that we will review our family life, curriculum. And so I'm gonna have Ms. Grimsley, actually, I believe, had the pleasure of doing that, 5 years ago.
Yes, ma'am.
And so here we go with another 5-year review.
Another wow. All right. So one of our favorite parts of integration in the curriculum is our family life curriculum. But this time it'll be a little bit differently. The last 5 years we had a lot of changes to incorporate pretty quickly. I know Ms. Johnson and Mr. Mills, I believe you were on the board then when this happened, but we had a major change in some of the policy and regs regarding family life education. We pulled out a lot of our materials, and it turned out they were film strips and old material that needed updating. There was a lot to do. So this time I'll just go through the agenda and objectives. We will go through again the laws that regard family life education in the public school system, what the Rappahannock County School Board policy does say. The main task of this curriculum review team, it's a community involvement team, and the state really specifies the people that need to be on that. The last go around, we had a curriculum review team that partnered with our health advisory board, and now we have our administrative team also with our health advisory board. That's the viable avenue that the state has us go through for this process. And what we have to do is really determine, you know, it's like anything else. It's more straightforward than people tend to think. We have SOLs for this too. So the state really does mandate between the grade levels of K and 6 what the comprehensive sequential standards are, where they're taught. The local committee has some flexibility, not in what the standards are, but where they place them. So in K to 6, we can move them where the committee sees fit, and we did that last time. There were a couple of standards, I believe, in the 2nd grade. We moved up to 3rd and 3rd into 4th. And that's all online right now. You can, and there's a link later that I'll point that out to you, so you can take a look at that. And then after we do that, we look at our current materials, what we're currently using, and do we adequately, we look at the crosswalks and mapping. At the last 5 years, we did a lot of work mapping all that out. Where are all these standards, K to 12, taught when, how, in what instructional materials, what way, what's the procedures, and we have all that in place. So we review the current materials. Are they still current? Do they match what we're supposed to be covering in the standards? And that's what the committee does. If the answers are yes to that, then there's not much else to do. Then it's up to the building level. If you need updating, like with your textbooks, if I need replacement because 3 books were destroyed, then we update those. It's not a full-scale adoption if you're meeting all the standards. And that just makes sense because you'd be adopting things quite often with any subject. That's the way we do these evaluations. Okay? So here's the law. These components must be included in a sequential, comprehensive manner based on the standards of learning. So it's still a pretty conservative curriculum. It has, and part of this is if you look at our local value statement at the beginning of our curriculum, at the end of this, there's a link to that. Rappahannock Public Schools did at least 5 years ago. We'll see what the the committee says now, but I believe it will still stand that we see family life education as just that. Family life is where a lot of that should take place, and we're only covering what's mandated in response to some national health data and the things that the federal government mandate the states tell us and the standards and so forth. So that's kind of how that happens. These are the components that every curriculum must have. It has to have age-appropriate education of family living and community relationships, the value of marriage, abstinence education, adoption as a positive choice for unwanted pregnancy, human reproduction and sexuality, dating, violence, and sexual abuse, etiology, prevention, and end effects of STDs, and mental health education and awareness. So when we did this the last time, we incorporated all those standards, and we had to find curriculum materials at the most cost-efficient way to cover this broad spectrum of standards, because it is a lot. And typically, and the other part of the law says it can't interrupt your regular instruction with the SOS. So it's like, oh my, okay, so that's a lot to integrate. So it took a lot of mapping and a lot of people to do that. We found curriculum materials. We currently use Choosing the Best and Marsh Media curriculum materials that incorporate all of this. And where we couldn't find, because like any textbook, you're never going to find a textbook that covers all the Virginia SOLs the way you want them to, because they're usually national textbook companies. But we found ones that could do the closest thing we could, and then where we fell short, either the guidance counselor picked up and has character education at the elementary school at least that covers those. In 10th grade we have biology that covers some of that as a unit of biology. So we mapped that out K to 12, all the standards. So we have that in place. Also part of the law, the second part of this is that, of course, the right of the parents is huge in this. We still say the parent is the keeper of the knowledge on that one. So we have a process in place that before any family life curriculum is taught, we send a letter home at least 2 weeks prior, and they get an overview of what is being taught, the topics, and they have an option to opt out of certain parts of that, all of it, or whatever. So we give them that option to do that. They also have the right to come in and review that anytime during the year. They can write a letter to the principal, I want to review the materials. They come in, set an appointment, and they get to look at the materials and see what we do. And they also have the right, and I said that, to exclude and opt out. So those are the rights of the parents. So they're all available upon request, and we make sure we have that. So the revisions through the years, this just goes through how this is built. Family Life Ed really took hold in the late 80s in response to the national health crisis of the HIV and STD outbreaks that were going on. And that was when the federal mandate came across that all public schools need to teach some of this stuff to help prevent. And then, as you can see, it just built on from there, these pieces. And this is partly, not all federal, this is state, mostly the state of Virginia incorporated these. The standards didn't even come till 10 years after the initial onset of Family Life Ed. And then where we were, you can go to the next slide, through the years. 2011 was the last part of that, where there's local school division requirements to make sure that they were sequential, in the right place, the procedures were in place to opt out and all of that. So that's where we were in 2011, and I'm very happy to say that there have been no new revisions, which was very surprising with everything going on, but I think there's a lot of judiciary and legislative process going on at the federal government level, which will, kind of dictate the way we do it next time. But right now our process is every 5-year review of the standards, see how it's going, and then if our current materials meet it, then we're good. If not, then we have a lot of work to do. But as of right now, it's kind of no new standards. We'll look at we'll just see if we still think they're developmentally appropriate. Do our materials still current and okay with that? But if they are, then it should be a lot easier than last time. At least I hope so. Okay, so the meeting date will be January 26th at 6 p.m. We do have a community involvement team of, last I checked, we have 16 people. And that's just the committee. It is open to the public, so anybody can come to listen to what we're talking about. before the meeting, what I usually do for the team is send them the link, or they go to the curriculum and really go through the standards, go through the process, so they come ready to talk. It's a big document with all the K through 12 value statement, the sequential curriculum and everything, so they understand that, you know, we have some flexibility, but kind of not really, because we have standards of learning we have to teach, so.
What's the date?
January 26th, in the high school library. So yeah, looking forward to that. It's always a lot of fun.
Appreciate you doing it.
No
You
problem.
did a great job 5 years ago. 5 or 6 years? 5 years?
Yeah, 2011 was the adoption. We started a year earlier. Yep.
Is there any questions? Thanks for doing that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Reports, I hope not. Reports of headwaters represent?
Well, I didn't remember to look it up, but I do remember that Kathy came and gave a report on project-based learning. And what did you say about the course? Kevin? Didn't you? I'm so busy. Course being mentioned.
Oh, course, I'm sorry.
Course.
Course.
Right.
Course has started, there,
Yeah, that's it, that started, that was good.
November 15th, and, there's 16 girls in there right now, going through, one song right now, and it's sounding very good. Las Vegas students here in the they'll be, performing for the, Pride Show on the 21st Street.
Thank you.
Are they having fun?
Yeah. Right, I know that was a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him perform it.
Are they gonna, they're not gonna perform?
No, Pride show, just the Pride show.
But it will be at the Pride Show. So you will give us time on that, when it's supposed to start.
I can, yes.
All right.
Oh, I had it in. I've got it started 9.
9?
That's what we have.
Well, he said about.
We're hoping to get started at that time. It's pretty lengthy. And of course, once we're done, they go to lunch and we go out of here. So, I'll have everybody at lunch at the same time. It's a little bit new, the way we're doing it this year, but I think since it's an early release, I think
It'll work.
we'll make it work.
All right, MVGS?
Yeah, we met, last week, whatever it was. Anyway, we talked primarily about budget. They're in the process of putting their budget together. We had 2 presentations, computer programming, which were quite interesting and, challenging to understand from my perspective. And then we talked about the 6-year evaluation program plan, or 6-year evaluation that was done last month. There's been some informal discussions about how well the whole program is working. And they won't come for another 5 months probably.
Any questions? All right, moving on. We have 5 items here that are board discussion items. Sick leave bank policy, we all had an opportunity to read the changes to that. And is there any discussion regarding those changes? The changes that were made place some limits around how it used to be used. Good idea. We'll have a chance to actually vote on that during action items after public comment. Any comments? No? The next thing, protocols and statement of values. So there were some attachments, and these were examples that were tweaked, but not necessarily, they're not ours that we own at this point, but they were out there so that we could see them. I picked them up at the VSBA meetings, and after sitting through this particular session, I thought it would be a good idea for us to develop these norms and protocols for how it is we communicate with each other, how we communicate with the superintendent, how the superintendent communicates with us, how we communicate with the administration, how we communicate with the public. and all these dynamics that can get very complicated on what not to do and how it is that we can do it so that we don't step on each other. So it seemed to me during that discussion, that hour and a half, that one training session, that there were a lot of problems throughout Virginia about how boards function, and that the development of norms and protocols helps structure and promote healthy communication. And so the reason that I asked that these things be put in our package is so we can take a look at them and know what they mean. My actual objective is to get us in a retreat forum next year, in early next year, which is led by typically a VSBA person. I don't know, I'm not sure who exactly leads the thing, but basically it's a retreat format where we develop these things so that they're really custom made for us. And we come to an understanding about what they mean and how they practically work themselves out. Any comments or questions about them?
I read a lot of them.
Pardon?
There were a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Well, it's not, yeah, I think there's, 6 or 8, 15 or so things. Yeah, I think it's good to have a format, kind of a rule of the road, kind of a process that makes things work. I'm not sure these are the ones that are best for us, but.
Right.
But,
It's
I
an
think in discussion, we can come up with the ones that are best for
Right.
us.
So this was an example. These came from Amelia County, and there are others around the state. And the goal is to basically take, it's a good beginning, and then take them and make them our own. But we do that as a group. VSBA won't even have the session where we discuss them unless all 5 of us can attend. So we have to find a time when all 5 of us could attend, take a day, and drive to Charlottesville, more than likely.
Well, you know, Wes, we have been there too, for discussion with the SBA, we did accomplish it though.
Well,
Well,
Well, let's avoid that.
part of that may be that we do our own some research.
Well, that's right, because
Discuss
it's
it,
sure.
discuss it within ourselves and determine whether we need to have a facilitator.
right.
Work
Yeah.
with that.
Now, all I would say is this. Every couple of years, we have a new dynamic. Like right now, Bud and I are the new dynamic that showed up on the scene in January. And so all year, we've been trying to figure out this thing, right, how we're communicating. Now,
You mean it's taking that long?
I'm from the old school, so I had a certain expectation. Bud's from a different perspective, she had a different expectation. So my point is this, every year it's a good idea. As we start another year, because we have new dynamics that hit us all the time and a new person, and to go through them together and say, okay, well, this is our understanding, these things how they work. And so while we're all scared to death to be in a retreat format, you're not, but the rest of us are. It's a healthy thing for us just to get together to talk about communicating and how we manage ourselves publicly with the superintendent, with our administration, public, and how did we take comments and route them properly or manage them. So it's still, I think, every time the dynamic of the board changes, it's a good idea to revisit the entire thing. This coming year, there's an election, and 2 board members are gonna be up for re-election or change this coming November, a year from now. And so, that's gonna, to me, be a time where after whoever the new ones are, we need to maybe go back and revisit again. Here's our protocols, here's our norms, here's what they mean to us. So, anyway, that's what was reinforced to me. I saw it as a very positive thing for our group, something that we lacked that could be very helpful to us. So, anyway, that's why it's in the packet. Is there any comments? Matt?
Yeah, I'd like boards to get, I'm sure other boards have similar documents and similar agreements amongst themselves. Maybe it's possible to call around and get 4 or 5 to look at. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel.
I'm afraid it's rarer than you think.
I don't think it is.
I don't know, I saw
be
a lot of
worth looking at.
chaos in Williamsburg.
Well, there's been always chaos.
Well, now, I mean, in the conversations that I saw going on, the types of questions that were being vetted were much crazier than anything you'd ever see in Rappahannock County. So, well, at least here anyway.
Maybe we might not go back there.
So, all right, well, I would ask that you consider the things, if you have any ideas, and maybe we will, I can certainly, well, here's what I can do. I can talk to Gina and ask for other exemplars throughout the state and see what I get back, and I'll broadcast whatever I get, right, to everyone. Right, Don?
Yes, sir.
Who you talk to?
Gina at GFBS. So I'll take that action.
The only thing I would add is ESBA is where you send all your, even if they don't help you find your superintendent, that's where you send your superintendent go through your training, the first time superintendencies. So they're gonna be getting that information from ESBA, so it's kind of nice to go to the same source, but you know then what the superintendent's been told. And there's a
Well,
conflict there.
it's another source, surely it is.
All right. The next thing was the attendance. Larry, you had prepared this and sent it to all the board members?
No, I sent it to you and the superintendent
Okay.
actually, because I thought that was the right direction.
Yep, so I'm not sure if I forwarded it out or not. I don't know if I did.
I don't think so.
No.
Anyway.
Do you want to
a
discuss
couple-
it?
Yeah, I typed it up. What I put up. And this, I want to preface this by saying that by in no means, my only purpose, and I think I mentioned this a couple months ago, attendance, which bothered me in looking at some data that I had seen. The preference is that if kids are not in school, teachers can't teach them. And I'm trying to figure out a way, our attendance ratios are not really good in Rappahannock compared to the state. And I think it's important that we look at the data to determine what we can do to, if nothing else, entice kids to come to school, entice parents to send them to school. I know there are certain situations where parents will say, well, especially at the elementary level, I'm sick, so I can't get my kid up, so my kid's gonna stay home. And I know that frustrates people. I know it frustrated me as a school person, when kids just had no reason to not come to school. So I did a little research, and I find that what is chronic absenteeism? And most people would think it's more than it is, I think. It's, according to the U.S. Department of Education, it's 2 or more days of missed instruction per month is chronic absenteeism. That's 18 days a year. Anything over 18 days a year is considered chronic absenteeism. And how does that affect learning? Children who are chronically absent from preschool to kindergarten and first grade are much less likely to read on grade level by third grade. And that's a keynote. Students who can't read at grade level at third grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. And that's a national statistic up and down the line. I don't think that fits our statistic very well because we mentor kids through high school a little bit closer than you can if you had a high school of 2,000 or 3,000 kids. A student who's chronically absent in any year between the 8th grade and the 12th grade is 7 times more likely to drop out of school. Now remember what chronically absent is. It's 18 days a year. Now how does that affect teaching? Teachers can't teach kids that are not there. It just can't happen. It also affects them in that teachers spend valuable time reteaching students when they're absent. If they're reteaching, they can't teach new stuff, new information. Other students in class suffer. When kids are absent, the teacher has to work to catch kids up. Where do we stand? The data regarding chronically absent in Virginia is broken down into 4 categories. Missed between 0 and 10%. That's 0 days to 18 days. 10 days, 10% to 15%. That's 18 days to 27 days. 15 to 20% is 27 days to 36 days a year. And missed more than 20%, more than 36 days a year. Right now, we have, I'll just do the 0 to 10% in the state is 88.9% of the student body. In Rappahannock, it's 68.5%. So somewhere we're missing. 10 to 15%.
Which means, by the way, on that metric, we're doing much better.
No, we're doing worse.
68%.
Are gaining, 68% are there 0 to 18 days.
Right,
Or
so,
missed 0
but
to
the
18.
state
Is 88%. Many more kids are 0 to 18 days.
Right.
That's right. So we're not as good.
You want that number to be the highest.
You want
because
that number to be the
0
highest number
attendance.
possible.
It is,
It is
really-
confusing, but
It
it's,
is.
it's something we have to look at.
Okay.
So you take the next
Keep
one,
going.
and 0 or 10 to 15%, which is, remember, 0 to 15, or 10 to 15% is 18 to 27 days out. 5.8% of the kids in Virginia missed, I'll say it this way, this will be an easier way to understand. 5.8% of the kids miss 18 to 27 days in the state.
Okay.
All right? 14.4% of Rappahannock kids miss 18 to 26.
Which is double.
Which is double.
All right, so we're double the state average for kids missing
Missing
school, more than
school.
18 days.
18 to 27,
Right.
to 27.
And if we don't understand this data, we can't do anything to fix it. I don't think. 15 to 20% is 2.2 in the state, 6.4 in Rappahannock. And 20% in the state is 3.1 and 10.8 in Rappahannock. 105 kids miss 26 days or more in Rappahannock. 61 kids miss 27 to 36, 148 kids 18 to 27, 629, 0 to 18 days.
Where'd you get these figures from?
Where again? The state.
From the DOE site?
Yep.
How many kids we have total?
800. Not
It
counting
was
high school. This is K
894
through
last
12.
year.
943.
Yeah, the numbers are a little bit wrong.
They're a little bit.
Something's off.
It's all stacked off the
We're off
state.
by like almost 700 people.
No, we went
That's probably-
back, we went ahead and did it for you so you'd have something to see if the community wanted to see. Robert, can you pull it up?
Is it a different year?
The percentages are.
This is
are
last year's
pretty-
data.
Yeah, on your sheet, he's got
We didn't lose that
2014,
many
15,
kids,
but it's
though.
2015, 16
Yeah,
data.
it's
This
up-
is 14-15 data.
It's still off.
No, that's the 15-16 data.
She checked it, you used
15,
15, 16 data, so
You're
that's
right.
wrong.
Yeah.
But what's on here, I'll just kind of give everybody a viewpoint about this. This is something that's come up in superintendent's conversations for the last 2 years since I've been working on that at our retreat. The state developed something called, a profile, so that they could start looking at attendance. And if you click to the next slide, it's up as public document if you wanna see it. You go to the Department of Ed's website, and you'll see the quality profiles, and you can click on them, and they'll give you these graphs and these charts. And so if you click on one for the elementary school, and then you click on another one, hit the high school, Robin. So she just did a snapshot of it there, but now flip to your chart. These are our numbers. There were 614 students that missed either 0 days or up to 17 days. And the state is identifying, they're going by the U.S. Department of Ed's, which Mr. Rhodes is absolutely right, 18 days, chronic absenteeism. So you want to have a lot of numbers up in that first category, 614 kids. We are 68%, which is lower than the state's number of kids missing 0 to 10%. But you've got to also remember we're so small. Think about Mr. Nazer's class that 1 year. One child missed chemistry and he dropped to 82%.
True.
So that does affect us a little bit.
That's why
now.
that's why I think it's important to use real numbers, real students,
Right.
not percentages.
Now, the thing that we found surprising about this from last year's data is if you go to the same site and you look at our average attendance, our attendance was 95.9%. attendance at school. But according to the site, we also had 96 students that missed more than 36 days, and we're finding that like, we're not really sure how that is if we had 95% attendance. And we did, and we got paid for 95% attendance too. Well, I mean, and we know we're right about that. What's interesting to us is, it didn't take the U.S. Department of Education to tell us this. We've been working on it. Mike's been working on it for 2 years because the high school was lagging a little bit behind the elementary school. And, you know, we have to do the phone calls home, we do those, but we've got a real issue with state code. State code says it's okay if a child is absent if the parent knows they're absent. That's our issue. If we take them to court, you can't do anything with them because the parent says, I know they were absent. But you're absolutely right, we can't teach them if they're not in.
So, that's why I prefaced what I said with the fact that we have to find incentives for kids to come to school when parents know that they're not in school. I mean, it's kids, the kids I know and the ones that live in over where I am, they love school. They want to come to school. But there are some kids who don't like school. And I think we need to find out who they are and figure out a way to get them here. To me, these numbers are
Too high.
something that we need to talk about. I'm not damning anyone. I think we need to talk about it. I think it's important for parents to be involved in those talks. I think it's an issue that the elementary and the high school and everybody else needs to have and be aware of. I just been looking at it, I just went over and over and over.
What was interesting to us is the 2014-15 data, our attendance was higher than
15, 16.
15-16, and 16-17 right now is mapping out higher than last year's.
Well, that's good.
You know, so it's kind of like this, but until we find out how to
But
get
then you
them
go
here,
back
keep
to
them here.
13, 14, and it was much lower.
Yeah, so we've got to find a way to get them here, but,
Well, then one year you had that flu epidemic, when you have lost half the kids in the school.
well, I also know that
Yeah,
if I
that's
have
one day.
school,
Or 2
No,
days.
this was a long drawn out, I mean, they were
I
talking
remember
about
one time Mr.
closing the
Human
schools.
called me and asked me how many students missed school. We had come to school and we had snow still on the ground and it was difficult to get in, and I think I had 127 absences that day. We have a lot of weather-related issues and school will go on and they're not here. And you're right, we do have to go back and reteach them.
Yeah.
So it is definitely something to look at, but that profile is there. It lists everything about your school, and they're gonna start putting the attendance as one of the, teeth marks into accreditation at some point.
It's called
And they're
school-
just talking about this now.
Schoolquality.gov, I think it is.
Yeah, but
Separate
it's on your
profile.
actual DOA website. Until they change state code, it's gonna be hard to put a lot of teeth in it for us to
Well,
make
if
it
the
work.
parent has the right to keep the child at home, and you have no right to get it there, how can they make you
Exactly.
responsible?
Or they to go and do it.
It's called law.
So,
But
anyway.
I think, well, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a superintendent in this region. And his high school principals, they tell their kids, you gotta be average, and you missed less than 4 days in school year, or 2 days per semester, you don't have to take the exam. So that brings kids to school. He said his principals would not do away with that
We have
rule.
exam exemptions.
Huh?
We have exam exemptions.
I don't know.
I mean.
Is it based on attendance?
Could I speak, Dr. Matthews mentioned, we've been working on this for some time.
I don't doubt it.
Robin will tell you that, beginning of this year, I wanted to make sure, because I was not positive the data that we were using for last year was accurate as far as my building goes. And, so from day one, started counting attendance. What I can tell you is, obviously, there's all kinds of ideas, but, you know, families have certain things that happen. And for example, the family's going on a trip because their timing of their vacation is during school time. My conversation with those parents, I can't tell them they can't go. I can tell them that your child's gonna be behind and they're gonna have to work to catch up. And, you know, the reality of it is, they may not get the grade that they're expecting. It's, and
I'm not putting this on.
no, I
you
know
or
that,
anybody.
but just wanna let you know.
What I'm
that-
saying is that we, as a school system,
Right.
need to let parents know how important it is for their kids to be at
Yeah.
school regardless of why they're not there.
Well, yeah, and then that's kind of what our visiting teacher helps, when we sit down and have those meetings. And remember, it's so true, I mean, you look at the bottom line, our bottom line number of 890 kids, it doesn't take many to get down to a low percentage. So we're having those meetings with kids even before they're crying, and having those discussions with parents. And again, you say, okay, why did you miss, I mean, you go each day, because these are unexcused help. Had an orthodontist appointment. And you know how, you can have all the conversations with parents, schedule those at the end of the school day, it ain't gonna happen. Excuse my,
Bring them in when it's over. I mean, it's the same thing, but there's only so much I think the school can do.
That's right.
But I think the population needs to be aware of how important it is. The fact that if a kid can't read at third grade on level, they're in trouble, regardless of what happens. Whether they come to school every day from fourth grade on, they're still in trouble.
Well, at my level, when they're there, and the reason they don't like coming to school is because they're tired of being defeated. And that's why alternative ed is so important, finding another way to get what they need to get out of here.
I agree.
There's a lot of incentives out there that we do, and I think, again, my goal is 97% this year for this building. Been hitting 95 pretty regularly. 97 is a stretch, because right now we're going through an epidemic of stomach virus. And I had a kid come to school, started testing.
No.
Bless her, she had.
Don't bring that up.
But I mean, the point is,
Right.
There's
a large percentage of our student population, I think, probably in both schools, that love coming to school.
There's no doubt in my
And
mind.
I think, anyway, I appreciate it, I think we're.
It's a good thing to review and be aware of and try to get the message out.
There's also a lot of good in that website too, because you see how great we are performing. I mean, look at our scores, even when we're not getting here, it's amazing. So there's a lot of great stuff in
And
there.
our dropout rate is.
Yes.
I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's a great it's a well-done website.
There's a lot of variables to the whole equation. Just absenteeism.
all right, so anything else to add before we move on? Thank you, Larry. All right, discussion of bill payment requests, so, we,
Where are we now?
the bill payment request, right? We have a copy, I guess we have a soft copy, which is taking forever.
Yeah, actually, there's one loaded, I believe, too.
Do you wanna
Yeah,
just
but
sign?
it's just taking forever, never to download.
Oh, that's one.
That's okay. Is it? I didn't have that. You have that.
I actually have two copies.
Well, if anybody wants to look at it, but here's the deal. And I realize this is a complicated thing for Mr. Rubin, and that he needs to, I know you have to do whatever you think. The situation of vehicle, Rappahannock County Schools bus garage. I was trying to find if there's anything in writing. There isn't. It's a gentleman's agreement that we will take care of the county's vehicles. We've done it. It's a gentleman's agreement, as far as I can tell. It has been for a long time, and it's the best use of the taxpayers' money for us to help in such a way, because we're equipped to do that. However, we received this bill, which I guess we're being asked to pay how much of it? It's a $1,268 bill.
Yes, sir, we're being asked to pay for an oil change, spark plugs, and new oil for $622.72.
622.
72.
622.72.
622.72, yes, sir.
So we're being asked to pay
Yes.
about half of the bill.
Yeah, but the sheriff's department pays for the parts.
Yes, sir.
We do.
That's the key. We do just the
We do the
labor.
labor.
We do.
They even bring in their own oil, as I understand it.
They send us cases, yes.
Alright. So we're just basically covering labor. So the gentleman agreement part for us in that situation is we cover labor for the maintenance of a vehicle. And the bill that we're getting is that being asked to pay by the sheriff's department is for $622.72 for oil and filter,
The spark plugs are $126.72. The oil was $21, and it looks to me like the labor was $475.
Alright, so before I say anything else, let's just see what anybody else has to share about this.
Well, I think there's some history that
It's what,
needs to be,
Um,
on why this
I
is
think
happening.
so.
Okay, so
Okay,
can you share
so-
some of the story with us?
Yes, sir. So you have actually two bills. In 2013, this same VIN number vehicle needed an oil change. The oil change was done, and at that time, the thought was that 8 quarts of oil had been put in instead of 7. And the Chrysler dealership didn't charge anything, but took the oil out and redid it. Okay? So we come up with this vehicle in November 10th, that completely stopped on the road when they were answering a call, and they towed it back into the shop, and we had just changed the oil on it. So the gentleman that changed the oil wasn't there that day to check the vehicle. So I had 2 other, the mechanic and the part-time mechanic checked it. At the time, it was thought that there wasn't any oil in it, and that's what had messed up. It actually was a fuel pump that had gone bad, but there was some oil on some of the spark plugs. We took out a couple, and there wasn't any oil on those. There was some in the back. And so the thought was, the person that brought the vehicle in, was that maybe we had overfilled it again. We did check. We had not overfilled it. We did have the 7 quarts of oil, which is what is required. It was not, it had been towed in and had not been turned on. Mr. Boone checked it. The oil was correct. It was full. And I also had Chris King, who was doing an internship as a mechanic back there, and he checked it at a different time in front of me and in front of the person, the owner of the vehicle, and it was full, correct, at that point. It was towed out and carried to the Chrysler shop, so my mechanic that had worked on this vehicle didn't have a chance to look at it later. We could certainly have done another oil change if that's what had been wanted at no cost to the county except for the cost of spark plugs and oil. Then later I was presented with this bill with a request to pay that. And we do oil changes all the time, and I personally feel that we take a great pride in being sure that our fleet of buses stay on the road and our fleet of cars stay on the road. So the bill totaled $1,200, but the rest of it was for the fuel pump. And if you look at the notes at the bottom, it said the fuel pump failed, 0 PSI from the pump. They removed a safety glass in the rear seat to access the fuel pump. Excessive fuel in the tank had to drain some out of the tank, so fuel wouldn't go all inside of the car. Replace the fuel pump, and then the last 2 sentences says drained and refilled the engine oil. The service charge for the charge for labor on changing the oil was more than taking out a window, putting a window in, and putting in a fuel pump. But we've tried to communicate with this business. They will not communicate with us. They say it was not our vehicle. Which is a problem I never dreamed we would have.
Right.
But they won't communicate with us.
All
So
right.
I don't have any other information about the changing of oil.
So part of this is labor, and part of it's parts. Labor's something usually we cover in-house, because it's our mechanic, it's already on our payroll. And parts is not something we pay for anyway.
Right.
And so, my only statement is, if we help pay this bill, we set a new precedent for any county employee that wants to take their vehicle to wherever and send us the parts and
well, that's
labor.
what I object
Does
to.
anybody not
I mean,
$600 for oil and labor is that not ridiculous?
well, it
I mean,
amounts to about $475 for this.
$475 is labor for changing 16 spark plugs. and
Well, the spark plugs are $7.92 each, and you can get them at B&B
And,
for $4. This is set for the same,
that's what you get when you go to the dealer.
Well, that's the deal, and you can't, the dealer has their own
well,
prices, and you have
that's
to deal
true,
with it.
but it was their choice to take it to the dealers, not ours.
My thought is if we made a mistake, then we need to own up to that mistake. I don't think we made a mistake, and therefore I don't think we need to own up to this.
Well, I don't think, I mean, I don't have to agree with that, I don't think we made a mistake, and not to our knowledge, we didn't, and I
No.
mean, if they feel that we made a mistake, they could have come in and talked about it, but they didn't do that, they chose to take the car somewhere else. And we could have done the job, could have redone what they did for half this amount, and to me, I would refuse to pay it.
Well, we could have done it for much less than half, because we wouldn't have had any labor costs, other than we were already paying. And our parts would have been at least half or
We'd
maybe
have to
two-thirds.
also diagnose
We
the
wouldn't even
fuel
be paying
pump.
for parts.
Well, the fuel pump is
You'd
what
have to
caused,
diagnose the fuel pump, and
Was
Well,
what
that's true.
caused it, right?
Right.
I
Anyway,
mean, we didn't put a fuel pump in.
so,
no,
we wouldn't install a fuel pump?
I said we didn't
I mean,
diagnose
no,
the fuel
we
pump.
But
would
normally we.
You wouldn't?
I don't know.
I bet we probably would.
If you know.
Well, I think too, if we start doing this now, and it would be forever, they could take it anywhere they wanted to, and then they would just be using us, and I feel like we've been used, and I don't like that.
Well, last month we were talking about $250, and now I'm wondering where we're gonna have $1,600, $600. There's no place to just keep grabbing money out of the
Well, that's
pocket.
right, we don't have it.
Well,
And I mean, if it was a bill we felt like we need to pay, we could find the money, but I don't think we feel like we don't need to pay this bill.
what do we have to do?
We don't have to do anything. We're gonna have a decision later whether we take an action, whether we're gonna pay the bill or not. We can take an action to say we're not gonna pay the bill.
Okay.
And it passes back, and then it'll end up in over to the Board of Supervisors, I guess, to figure out what to do with it eventually.
Well, I
Somebody,
feel
it's not a school budget problem, from what I can tell. Labor's something we do in-house, and parts is not something we do. This is a bill for labor and parts, and that's not our domain to deal with. It says here in the statement, I'm not sure where this came from. It says here, bus shop overfilled oil by a few ports, vehicle was driven. Will not start. Oil covered spark plugs, please advise. So I don't know if that's their statement or if that was the statement of it by its customer
imagine
taking
that was
it
the
in.
statement when
So
they
we don't
took
know.
it in.
No, I imagine that was the deputy's statement.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. I
We
think so
don't,
too.
we don't have any idea. This is not our problem. We do not get it.
If we were negligent, then we need to
Stand
live up to that,
I
stand
don't
up
think
for
we
it.
were.
I don't think we were
I
negligent.
don't think so.
We did go back and double check and we put in some reports.
Now, the key,
7 is what was called.
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's enough. Any other comments? Anything new?
Well, the point that we did, we feel like we don't need to pay it, it's not a bill we need to pay. If we all heard that, then I don't think it's any more discussion.
It's under action items.
Yeah, I think it's a bill we're not gonna pay. I think we need to take and make a motion that we're not gonna pay the bill.
It's under action.
Under
Well, I
action
think we
items.
need, I'll make a motion.
under action,
But that's what we're
not
in.
discussion.
Oh, okay, all right.
Are we done with the discussion on it? Does anybody has anything you wanna add about the VSBA conference? Anything you experienced at VSBA you wanna talk about?
This is a new.
Oh, the capital.
Yes,
That's an announcement about something new.
Yes, we did have a good suggestion the other day. Ms. Johnson stopped by when we were talking about this conference. And this is another expense, and I'm sure, I don't mean this as negative as it's gonna sound, but I'm sure I'm gonna see the same PowerPoint I've seen for 3 years. We could go and just go up to Capitol Hill
We
and
don't have to
just
go into those now.
anyway.
That's right.
You know, and I mean, if some board members wanted to go and speak to representatives, I just want to kind of put that out there and see how you felt about that. I don't know if two wanna go, if more than that wanna go, and just announce it and go.
I agree. I don't think you even have to go to the hotel.
I don't think so.
You go down there and park down by the
Yeah, it's
Capital
$185
Office building?
just to register. And now you wouldn't sit there and see the same PowerPoint, but you would do the same thing. You would spend your time going and see the
Yeah.
representatives.
I've never gone to this ever. I've never gone to this one.
I would be happy if I never had to go to this one of these.
We've been to two of them, and it's not worth it.
It's not worth it, why are we even discussing it?
Because when they come up, we always
We
let
don't
them
wanna
know the
register,
conference is
do we?
going on.
No.
Do we wanna register
No,
anybody?
no.
No?
We just wanted to make sure y'all did not want to.
No, no, no.
Now, if y'all do want to go, Amy can put it on the board packet that we have board members going, to talk with representatives, because we do have to announce that. So do we have more than two that would want to go talk to representatives? It's January 23rd through 24th. You wanna wait till the next board meeting and decide? Is that okay?
That's good.
Thank you.
So we're not gonna register, regardless.
Not
Right.
registered.
No.
Thank you.
All right. All right, are we done? Let's move on to public comment. Anybody from the public want to address the board this evening? Totally worn out? It's only 10 minutes to 6. Come on. All right. Last call?
Yeah.
All right. I'll entertain a motion on the approval of the comprehensive plan. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion, Mr. Uben. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Grove. Is there any other discussion? Thank the team for all their hard work on that. It's a great piece of work. Say, do we have 6 years? So 5 until we have to do it again? Hallelujah. All in favor of approval, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. So ordered. A motion concerning the approval of the change to the sick leave bank policy, GCBG and GCBG-R. Is there a motion to approve the change as presented this evening?
So moved.
Have a motion,
Second.
Mr. Grove, a second, Ms. Johnson. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's ordered. The approval of protocols and statements, I think we need to table that until we have time as a group to work on them together.
Yeah.
So that'll be tabled until we have time to review.
Right.
No action will be taken on 9.3. Is there a motion concerning the bill payment request?
Move that we not pay that bill.
We have a motion, Mr. Grove, not to pay the bill. Is there a second?
Second.
A second. Do we need to do a roll call vote? Yes, we do.
I don't know why.
You need to abstain?
Well, once you do a roll call, that means abstain.
Right, that's my point.
Yeah.
We'll do a roll call vote. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote, all in favor, aye or no? Who's gonna say abstain?
Abstain.
There's no.
So you're gonna vote yay
Yay
to not
for
pay the bill.
Not pay the bill, yay.
Yay, not to pay.
Right.
Okay, yay, not to pay.
Yay not to pay.
Yeah, no.
Yay not to pay the motion to not pay the bill. Approved. Does that make sense?
Is that all?
Make sense in the notes?
Yes, sir.
Statement of economic interest. Tell me, Rogers.
They do not have the final, form on the website for me to give to you all tonight. So, I loaded a draft, and, as soon as I get it, I will send it to you by email, or I will have hard copies, and you can come and pick it up, or.
And it's due back to you
It's
by?
due on the 15th of January.
In January.
Something to do over.
But it's
Christmas
changed,
break.
that, yeah, like that. Oh.
But you did say we don't have to do it once a year.
Yeah, so you just have to do it.
Had a copy of it?
Change them on.
Yeah.
good.
there any new business? Our next school meeting is January what?
It's the 13th.
January the 9th. No,
January 10th.
10th. January the 10th. Will be our next regular
Next
school
board
board meeting. All right? That's it.
I just was gonna ask the board, I didn't know if they wanted to move that meeting. I guess not. It's just we get back to school and we have, like 4 weeks to learn the board pack. We can do it. I just didn't know how y'all felt about it.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm off.
Oh,
It'll be short.
say,
But
say,
I'm off
Chris.
that day, I'd like
No,
to
keep
see that day
it
if
the
we
same.
can. Makes it much easier.
Much easier.
Just keep it on the night.
January the 10th.
Yes, it's an organization.
Organization
And there will
meeting.
be
So, Mr. Huber, were you saying you want to keep it the day?
chair,
Yes.
vice chair,
Do that.
clerk,